Hello everyone, I'm Dolly. For those of you who are regular subscribers and people who regularly like my videos, welcome back. Tonight I want to cover a rather difficult topic, and that is how bullies are born. As many of you are quite aware, I lived as a transgender woman during the mid-1990s all the way till a little time after 9/11, when things became very difficult. It was a very difficult time for us. But life got in the way, and I walked away from the life. It was not an easy decision. It was actually a rather regrettable one. But that's another story, and we're not going to really spend much time on it. So, we've all, as a transgender person, it doesn't matter, regardless of which direction you're going. In my case, being a trans femme, we've all been subject to harassment, some form of bullying, and we've often asked ourselves, why do people have so much fucking hate? Like, what do we do to these people? These random people you don't even know. They've never met you, but they are filled with anger. They're filled with anger. They often know very little of anything about transgender people, or for that matter, even you personally. They maybe don't know you at all. Maybe you're an internet personality or a screen name in a chat room or what have you. Run a blog, and maybe you give some advice, and some faceless asshole goes on to your page and sends you a lot of hateful messages and threats, and maybe someone with a little skills or connections finds where you live and broadcasts it to the world. Now opens you or their followers, depending on whether it's a bot or it's an organized effort, to harass you and stalk you and God knows what else. I mean, it's unfortunate that some people seem to have absolutely no fucking life. And after it's all said and done, regardless of whether the harassment stops, like, what is this supposed to accomplish? None of us, at least any of us who have lived this life for some time, are going to be shamed into returning to a life that didn't agree with us. See, here's the thing, and I say this particularly of men, straight white men in particular. You seem to have the most problem with this. And then, of course, there are a certain segment of men in color who also seem to have major problems. But it's always men, largely. Very few women. Most women keep to themselves, or it's not that big an issue if they understand the issue. Only the most insecure of women will bother to take issue with trans women. And I'm covering the full spectrum. I mean, I am a trans femme. I am happily married to my wife, who has supported me on this process. She knew how I lived before, and she met me during the period of detransition. It was a very difficult period for me. I did everything I could to fit into your world, and what did I get in return? Still more contempt. And so it's kind of interesting when particularly white men who seem to hate us the most want to all of a sudden call us men or try to equate us as men. There was an incident in, I believe it was in Tennessee. It was all over Instagram. Beautiful young girls working for some moving company or something. They're at a storage place, and these 4 black men who represented another moving company, they're at a storage place, mind you. They start harassing them, and one of the most poignant things they said is, "You are still men, and we will beat you up as men." Okay. And this guy walks right up and just fucking cocks her, it's for no apparent reason. I mean, beautiful fucking woman. And these assholes trying to convince themselves that we're like them. We're not like them at all. And I want to prove it to you, because these same people say, "Oh, we will not give you any validation." Well, actually, you have given us validation. You have given us validation our entire lives. I can't tell you how many times when I was young, how many times these very same people, who apparently never grow up, evidently, they'll always feel insecure, they'll always feel threatened. They'll be like these pundits or internet types that, they got a following. And, 2 years ago, they were out there on the internet collecting Barbie dolls and burning them and acting like children. Really sad. I feel sorry for their daughters. Very sad. The loss of a beloved toy, for a child, I think is awful. But these poor examples of men defending masculinity, I thought was ridiculous. It just not only shows toxic masculinity in its worst forms, but it also just shows what male insecurity, where it leads to, this childish behavior. I'll never forget, there was a scene in the movie, it came out in the late 80s, early 90s. It was about the Cray brothers in England. And there was this scene where they're talking, it's a documentary about World War II and the women that suffered on the home front. And the mother of the Crays just starts to go off. She is having a breakdown and she is angry. And she says, fucking men, they're born children. They grow up to be children. They live their whole lives as children. And one day, eventually, they die as children. Because some men, they fucking grow up. They've always got to play what we know as the pissing game. And that is, you come across another man, you got to be tougher than him. You got to prove it. You got to antagonize him. You must be the apex predator. This bullshit, machismo. Trust me, my family comes from Mexico originally, and Spain, and where have you. And our culture is full of that shit, and it's just as phony there as it is here. Trust me. These guys with these big fucking trucks, and they got the big guns, and maybe they got a big, big belt buckle the size of Arizona, and insecurity complex the size of Texas. It's just ridiculous. All these fucking guns. They gotta buy 30, 40 weapons, and they still feel the need to buy more. It's like, can you actually hold more than 2 weapons at a time? I'm skilled with a gun, but honestly, not so much with 2 at the same time. If you were in the 17th century on a pirate ship and you had the little musket guns, sure, you can do it. And of course, because they're not going to go off exactly at the same time, because you got to cock one and etc. That's why they wore like 5, 6 of these things at a time. But it doesn't solve nothing. It just screams insecurity. Now, I'm not out there condemning all men. As I've always noted, and I do know some people like this. They're what I would call the real men among us. They often become gentlemen. They might know a thing or two about chivalry, politeness, and stuff. But the thing that makes them who they are, and this is the part that's good about them, they never have to raise their voice. They never have to flex their muscles. They never have to hit the accelerator to show the other guy he's got the bigger engine. And it's like, who the fuck cares? Does this affect how you pay your bills? How you pay your taxes? How much food you're gonna put on your plate? The things that really matter? Probably not. But this is what they focus on. And so you have these guys out there that they're obsessed with this shit. It's to almost a homoerotic level, so it doesn't surprise me when I hear some of these fucking stories of stupidity, and it's awful. But as a trans person who's been on the receiving end of their wrath, mind you, I'm 57 years old, so for more than 50 of my years, I've been subject to this harassment and bullying. Does it stop me? No, and it's not going to, because this is who I am. You can't shame someone into a closet. You might scare a young cross-dresser who is barely in his teens and is scared and lives with hostile religious fanatics or something. You might scare them for a short time, but eventually you won't be able to control them. No more than you can control me. It doesn't work that way. But then, after all of it's said and done, we're back to the same fucking question. Where does this fucking hate come from? Where? Why? Now, many of you out there will probably say, well, this probably comes from religion. Yeah, some of it does. But remember one thing, and you've probably heard, I'm sure you've heard this many times before. Nobody is born hateful. Nobody is born hating. No one is born so angry that they want to burn the whole world down just so no one else can enjoy it. No, this is a behavior that's taught. Now, what happened to me is very common to, the few people that are out there. We're like, make up 1% of the world population, but we've always existed. I guess you could say we're a very unique variant of the human experience, but we've always existed. Always. And always shown. I mean, Nazis thought they could kill us all. And then 1946 rolled around and a whole new generation was born. You can't predict who's going to do that. And no matter what that deranged Kennedy boy thinks he's doing, he's not going to find no smoking gun that predetermines who's going to be transgender and here we're going to nip this in the bud once and for all. We're going to make them, in just 7 days, we're going to make you a man. No, it doesn't work like that, sorry. You say, we're going against nature. No. You are. What happens to us is natural. We are taught by you that gender dysphoria is a bad thing. And so many of us grow up thinking, oh, this is fucked up. I've got this condition. Got no goddamn cure for it. And the only thing that people can offer us is fire and brimstone and fear and violence and no, that doesn't solve the problem. Some people will develop trauma from this. Some people will experience lots of trauma from it, and other people will develop complexes or go deep with depression, and some will take their lives. And before you get all excited, that'd be less than 1% of us that actually succeed in that. And all you're doing is just making another poor soul that didn't do anything to you, you're doing a great wrong. And particularly you people out there that wear those shiny gold crosses, but yet ignore every damn gospel out there, but yet you want to preach to us, give it a rest. Ain't gonna work. So, again, where does this fucking hate come from? Well, and that's the reason why we're making this video. You see, when I came to the conclusion that I couldn't avoid this much longer, I'd been away from it for a while, and I always regretted. And I realized my mortality was kicking, and I had quite a few near-death experiences. And the last few years, I've had some very bad health, and some of the biggest regrets of my life have been that I walked away from this experience. I went through so much the first time, and the sad part was I didn't really get to enjoy it. It took me 7 years to reach equilibrium, the blissful moment all transgender people will pray for. That happens to them. And the day it happened, it was crushed, taken away, just like that. And then 9/11 happened, and the world became suddenly super complicated. Okay, that was a different time. And the conditions that followed were unique, and hopefully, we'll never see anything like that again in our lifetime. I hope not. I wish no ill upon anybody, even my enemies. And these are people that don't know me, but just hate me. Not because I got some interesting clothes, or I wear pearls, or dare I fly this flag, or wear makeup, whatever. No, it's just because of who I am. I've done nothing. I haven't broken any laws or anything. No threat to nobody. But they're these fucking men. And they're the drivers of this mind, I mean, yeah. J.K. Rowling over in England? No. This isn't her original idea. Someone wanted to use her. Just like, to say she wrote those books too. I don't believe it. Because I've written 14 books, and I can tell you, if you put that much time and effort into your stories, into your characters, you're going to stand behind them. She doesn't do that. You can't write a story about a kid who was different, persecuted, and abused, and make him a hero, and then take all the money in the world that you make from that and dedicate it to going after that same child. Yeah, sounds like fraud, doesn't it? Well, so how does this all relate to me and the present? Well, it's been brought to my fucking attention that what I feared most, what would happen if I did make this choice. Now, mind you, I have children, small children, right? I've had children before the first time, but I had only girls. You know, I seem to have only produced girls. No surprise. Well, it always been kind of a thrust upon me because I was kind of the last of the family line, or at least my branch of the family, that the male heir of the last dawn of the family was obligated to bear sons and to carry on the family name and all that old Spanish bullshit, you know. I was supposed to be the dawn of my family. But because I was transgender, I said, no, we'll never recognize you. You will never be the dawn. Okay, so what? That's part of what got me to say, okay, you don't want me to be the dawn? Fine. I'll go back to being Ava. And I've been happier ever since. But before I could become Ava again, I had a very daunting problem. And it was, I remember the harassment I got. I remember the bullying. I remember the depression, the mad rages I would go through because I was humiliated time and time again. Even despite being put through martial arts training and weapons training and every other, I did everything short of joining the military, which what my father really was adamant about. He really wanted me to do that, but that wasn't meant to be, not for me at least. And trust me, I felt guilty about it, particularly when Desert Storm rolled around. You know, I knew a lot of veterans, and I was always fascinated with their stories, and they became the basis for a lot of my books. But here I have the problem. I have a son. And I agonized for 3 years. How do I come back and transition and not negatively impact my boy? And it wasn't until a good soul, former member of the Screaming Eagles, and those brave souls that endured the Shaw Valley and the city of Way in the year I was born, the 101st Airborne, one of the most respected people in the Army at that time, and still among what's left of the Vietnam community, became out as transgender. Wonderful, wonderful soul, good person. And they were Native Americans, so they could adopt the Two-Spirit moniker and status, which makes very perfect sense. Like all transgender people I've ever met that thought maybe serving in combat or joining the military was going to kill the girl inside them. No, it doesn't work that way. They all come back and they say, no, she's still there. She's still there, nothing I can do about it. Unless you're brainwashed by some religion or living under the threat of a gun. But you must be very strong to endure this, because this life, as difficult as it is, most people cannot handle it. Most people cannot go through the change. There's a lot of tough guys out there that couldn't handle what I've gone through. Doesn't make me any tougher than them. But emotionally, I'm solid as a fucking rock, because I've been through some fucking trauma. And almost all of it, exclusively, at the hands of fucking white men. Yeah. But, don't get me wrong, I do know some gentlemen out there. In fact, one of my good friends is a former Marine. Met him in the punk scene back in the early 80s, and 40 years later, we're still friends. Good man. And dear brother. Semper Fi if you're watching. Anyway, so I agonized for 3 years on this. And our friend, our two-spirit friend, reached out to me. He says, she says to me, you caught me. It happens. Yes, we have to cover this on timeline. So, our good friend, Billy Two Feathers, says to me, you give your child a chance. They're living in a different era, and you don't have them in a regular school. You have them in a very unique school, a charter school that embraces diversity, embraces uniqueness in people, and acceptance and tolerance of others, and encourages people to have an open mind and stuff. And you'll be surprised how resilient these new kids are. Remember, no one's born hating. They have to be taught. Well, my child's been there now 3 years, and I've been super paranoid and worried. And in fact, we had arranged for me to make the appearance to pick him up after school. We had an after-school program, and he was granted a special status so he can attend it for free because of me, and they understood why. And it was offered to us, and we're very thankful for this charter school to provide that service for us, because they understand. They recognize not only the issues that could potentially be an issue problem for me, but also how it would negatively impact our child if you can get 100 kids altogether, and 99% of them are either indifferent or they're like, oh, that's cool, oh, you're a nice person, okay, maybe that's, and they're like perfectly okay with it because we've kind of normalized who we are. But all it takes is the one kid who was raised by a bigot. That kid complains to the parent. Then that parent flies into hysterics or howls or makes some form of outrage known. And suddenly the conversation changes. This was our big fear when we were worried about that. And for a long time it hadn't happened. We were afraid of complaints. And yes, some parents use the state. They would call Child Protective Services on us. They came on, they just thought what I was doing was illegal. Accused us of abuse, they couldn't prove anything. There's no abuse. For a family that has a lot of Latin roots, we don't live like our families, because our families didn't want to raise us that way. They didn't want us. They wanted us to be like them, but at the same time, they didn't want us to be them either. They didn't make a lot of sense. And neither did these people that started hating us, and I didn't understand why. As I've said in a previous video, I had a good friend when I was a child that it was very different. Today, I didn't know very much at the time, but looking back, I recognize that this boy that I was friends with was very different, and very similar to me, but not. I'm still friends with this guy 50 years later, and we talk about this once in a while, and we have a chuckle that, I knew that he was gay, and he knew there was something about me, but couldn't put his finger on it. Well, we didn't have the words for it, and God knows I was too fucking afraid. I thought it would have killed me. When I first came out in the night, my father did tell me he would have killed me. That or send me off to shock treatment. Of course, we know that's abuse. That doesn't work. That's been done to a lot of transgender people in the past, and it never cured anybody of anything. So they'd wind up either lobotomizing us or euthanizing us, essentially committing murder. And for what? Because you can't handle how another person lives. What gives you the right to judge? You people, especially you guys who wear those fucking crosses, I swear, if you really believe in your deity, the Almighty you claim, if you take that book of yours literally, exists, then who are you to speak for him? Who are you? And it's particularly those who use Jesus Christ as your punching bag, I like to say, because you throw his name around, but you don't follow a damn word he says. You know, he never spoke about transgender people. No. He never talked about gay people either. No, he didn't do any of those things. You guys did. I mean, these books and these stories have been revised so many times, translated, all along the way, and most of them have been. All along the way, someone else has added their 2 cents or 2 cents. I mean, I quickly figured that out. Out of first learning about how the printing press came about with Guggenheim, and later when I first embraced Norse paganism in particular, to make the sound realization that most of what little we knew of the religious practices of the Viking cultures was written down by Christians 100 years after because they burned everything, these guys. Of course. And again, as they retold what was left of what could be remembered, they added their 2 cents. And so the stories aren't exactly the way they happened, at least we like to think. So, and the only honest recording or observation of those people came from Arab sources, and they were wonderful because they confirmed a lot of what things we suspected, and gave us an insight into that world that existed at that time. But again, returning back to the present, so I discover that my son, granted, we've exposed him a lot of Joy Division since he was age 3, and our music can maybe make you a little moody. I mean, that's what goth music is, it's darkness and beauty, and this culture. It's very unique. Well, it turns out my son's depression was a result of some harassment by a kid that previously was his friend. He spent 3 years in the same class with this kid. And we met as parents many times. And we thought they were really cool people. I mean, protect these people. We're not, and I'm, again, because we're talking about children. We're talking about children, and we're talking about people that are alive. And, well, they're not our enemy. We don't hate them. We're rather shocked and rather dismayed to discover that the husband, the father of this child who has been harassing and bullying my son, is bullied by his father. He's bullied by his father, who has really become very vocal about his homophobia. And from what we understand, that's because his father did it to him. Well, my father tried to do that same shit with me a little bit, to a degree. Of course, Ross Williams fixed that. so did Rob Graves. It got me to realize, wait a minute, no, it's not so. And you're reacting to something that should not even be a concern of yours. And same thing with being transgender. I mean, we're going to live our lives. In many cases, majority of people won't even notice us because we'll blend in. Especially if they start young. And that's the whole agenda why they want to make sure that people don't transition while they're young. So it can become easy to identify. So you can just be the good, pious believer in whatever and be a violent dick, Well, it's just sad because, again, we thought they were cool people, and we enjoyed talking with them. They seemed very nice. They're in the music industry. And just sad to hear that for Mother's Day, kids doing arts and craft, and one of the projects, the child chose to make it in pink, and the kid wasn't even off the school grounds, and his father just exploded. This is news to me. It's like, he's not allowed to wear pink. He is not allowed to have pink, and that's what's going to turn him into. And I will not repeat what else was said. And we're going, oh, So that's what happened to this boy. I thought he was my child's friend. How sad. How sad and was upsetting as this harassment that my son has endured from a kid who was his friend. And another child, also, another boy. Again, boys. Girls don't bother him. Hey, I actually like hanging out with him. And I keep telling him, master that guitar or make that money, whatever, and, don't be a dick to people, and maintain those good looks, and maybe you might get all the girls. Who knows? You might be that rock star. Be a gentleman. Grow up. And don't flex your muscles, and don't beat your brow like an idiot and go, oh, look at me, I'm tough. I'm the big king, big kahuna. It doesn't work. It doesn't impress me. I have neighbors. I have a couple neighbors. I have this one guy. And now there's a woman that does it too, that are so goddamn insecure and hateful. And it's only after I started to, transition back into Ava that they start wearing perfumes and colognes, and these are not pleasant ones either. To the point it's like they brought a big dunk tank and bathed themselves in it, and it's so, and when people do that, oh my God, sucks all the damn oxygen. Is that supposed to attract anybody? If anything, if you were looking to be celibate, you're well on your way. That's almost as effective as wearing a goddamn MAGA hat. What? That's another subject. So getting back to this family, it's just a tragedy that a child who is going to a school that promotes love, openness, acceptance of other peoples, and the diversity of life, and give them a foundation so they can go out there and, this is a global world now. This Donna Reed fantasy that Mango Mussolini seems to have, it was fake then too. It didn't exist. It's all lies. And you can't live on lies. And don't come at me and say, well, you're living a lie. You're still, fuck you. You'll say this is just bad. You'll say whatever you've been told to say by these same people who didn't give a rat's ass about us about 2 years ago and told some fucking idiot from South Africa with a lot of fucking money who's too goddamn immature to have a civil conversation with their own fucking transgender child. And then on worse, one of the baby mamas ran off with a transgender woman. And so I'm like, ooh, double burn. That's well deserved. But what's not deserved is the money spent and the effort to try to harm transgender people with harmful legislation and harassment and taking away our protections and put us in dangerous situations. It's just, we didn't do anything to you. So why are you doing this to us? Why? Because you weren't born an asshole. No, you were taught to be an asshole. And right now I'm watching this in real time. This was a good kid. Can't say much for the other kid that my son seems to have a lot of problems with. But it's disappointing after 3 years of knowing these people that they're at least not the mother. Mother's still a decent person. I feel sorry for this child. He's gonna grow up to be a very hateful person, just like the other boy. And maybe one day he'll find some girl that will tolerate his bullshit, and maybe he might start a family. And unfortunately, with these type of people, the cycle of abuse will continue until the next generation and the next generation, until one person in the family line says, no, this stops here. The buck stops here. Not Mr. I don't take any responsibility at all. If you don't want to take the responsibility, don't fucking be involved. Plain and simple. It's just like those people out there that are against gay marriage. You hate getting married so much? Don't get one. How hard is that? Do you really have time to obsess with people's genitalia or how they live or who they love? I mean, come on. Get a fucking life, for fuck's sake. You know, I don't have time. I'm too fucking busy. I got 2 kids, especially with one of mine being autistic, and you know, it's draining. It's exhausting, especially at my age. I mean, I'm close to being 60 years old. The hormones have given me a level of energy and a little sunshine that, hell, I didn't have 10 years ago. It's wonderful. I love feeling like I'm 29 again at 57. It's pretty fucking amazing. If you're trans in spirit, but you are not sure if you can do this, and you choose to make that, trust me, it's worth it. You know, the bliss, the joy, sometimes we appreciate it. We appreciate it. And like the other day, we had a Trans Pride Festival here in Hollywood. And I've been to clubs where there was at least about a couple hundred trans girls. And, I've had that experience before. And it was kind of intense, a lot of energy. But that was 30 years ago. And most of those girls were sex workers. And so the vibe was very, very different. Yesterday, I attended a big-ass fucking party. It was actually 2 parties in the same location. There was the main party that was for the families and friends and allies, and then there was the after party, which was for us. And there was at least about 1,000 of us. I'd never seen so many trans girls in one place, and it was, and I remind myself, every trans girl at one point or another has felt alone because of the struggle and because of the fear and the threats and the violence and the harassment by these same fucking people who want to call us men now. I haven't lived this one in a while now. And, I'll have 7 years as a woman before. It was hard. I dare any macho man trying to do that. It's not easy. You'll find it very difficult, actually. So, and if you're not truly one of us, you're never going to get the benefit out of it. You're never going to really enjoy it. You'll never hit that equilibrium. My kid yourself had a good friend who got convinced that this was the life for him. It was actually non-binary, but in a way that is more acceptable today than back then. We just didn't have the terminology. But some kid who was trying to suck him from resources convinced him that this is what he needed to do, and well, that's another story. And it was sad. If you will know, because you'll have these same shared experiences. Just about all of us had this strange thing that happened to us when we're usually starts at age 4, sometimes age 5. But the world is telling, not the world, actually, your body is telling you, you are unique. And there's something very special about you. You may not understand it now, but in time you will grow into it. My wife, big David Bowie fan. God, I love Miss Death Ollie. She's wonderful. And she said this so many times, I come to ignore it after a while. But now I truly embrace this famous David Bowie quote, where he says, aging is the most extraordinary process of eventually becoming the person you were always meant to be. And even if you transition late, it's worth it. And it's just so tragic that there are some men out there, and a few women. There's the Nancy Maces of the world. Sad, poor creature. Anyway, there are these people out there who can't share in our joy. They can't fathom the idea that we exist. No, we have no impact on their lives. But they are determined to make an impact on ours, and it's not right. Or say it ain't right. Then again, it's those same people who taught me those phrases also said some people just need killing. You didn't hear that from me. Anyway, So, again, this has not been a very fun lesson, but it definitely ratifies and solidifies the old saying that no one's born hating. They're taught. And it becomes a generational thing, and the cycle of abuse just continues. And I feel sorry for the people that will one day grow up to be in their relationships with these people. And it will go on, and it will go on until somebody puts their foot down and says no more. I was lucky that I had Rob Graves, 45 Grave, and this wonderful person became a good friend of mine, dear brother of mine. Grew up in Miles Williams, who broke me of that spell of homophobia and stupidity that I was instilled without a fear by other insecure men, and made me recognize their uniqueness and how special some people are in the world. And it's just sad if you can't appreciate it. If it's not affecting you, don't consider yourself a hit. If it's not harming you, don't talk about it. If you don't understand it, don't try to convince others that they shouldn't understand it either. It's none of your goddamn business, frankly. But for those of you who understand this cycle of violence, this little where bigotry comes from, and it's sad because, these people, again, they were nice people, and they had the experience of being on the receiving end of racism. Both sets of boys. Very fucking sad. They have not learned from their experience. Me being very European looking in regards to my Latin heritage, never white enough to be a white person, or never brown enough to be Latino or Latino, but so we know a little bit about that too. Of course, some experiences will be more intense and more difficult than others. I will never try to compare myself to what a person of color has gone through. And that's sad because the father in question is a person of color. And it's just sad. One day he, loses the hate because life's too short. If somebody's in that situation, if they might listen to reason, try because hate should have no place in this life. It's poison. It's toxic. It doesn't help anyone. Take care of yourselves, everyone, and be good to each other. Love you all. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, life's too short to hate. So love. Take care of it.